This bonus episode was brought to you by the Gackoids over on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. And now, on to the episode.
Hey, Rocko. Doc.
Kick it.
Welcome all you love-struck Gackoids to Splat Attack, a podcast overflowing into the slime-filled past. I'm your love-struck fool, Brett.
And I'm your hopeless romantic, Alex. Brett. Love is in the air, isn't it?
I can tell by all the hearts that are emanating from you. What makes you so filled with love today, Alex?
Just my world is filled with love. You know, I love my family. I love my job. I love my podcast. I love our patrons. So thank you all so much for listening.
And I love you all too.
So what are we doing here today, Brett?
Well, there's no better way to show your love than to battle each other in a versus battle, because we love to fight on this podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little lover's quarrel. Well, this should be fun. It always is. But if we're going to do a versus, we're going to have a third person join us. So just to make sure it's fair and no cheating happens, who we got in mind?
I got my love tester hooked up. So let's go through the guests and see who's joining us today. Oh, it looks like I hit the top, and it says up there that Carl is our guest today, as it emanates out of the love tester. So, Carl, what are you doing in a love tester? How are you doing lately? I haven't seen you since Pete and Pete episode 31.
I've had the great privilege of being introduced on stage many times, but this is the first time I've ever been introduced as coming out of a love tester.
You can take that however you want, Gackoids. You can take it literal, or you can take it somewhere else.
Oh man, I hope my wife is on the other side of this door listening in.
Ours too.
Well, you'll have to tell her now. It's official. I am a love magnet.
I'm just a love machine. I would want buddy for nobody but you. Oh, yeah. Perfect time to sing that song. Oh, boy.
Oh,
before we get to Love Struck with Hilarity, let's start our versus battle, shall we? We got two titans of romance ready to duke it out in our ring. Let's get ready to versus!
Fight!
So starting off for our love-themed versus episode today, in my corner, we have Ren and Stimpy's I Love Chicken, which I should add is our very first time we're covering Ren and Stimpy outside of our Nicktoons 30th anniversary episode. So, woo! Glad you're finally on the podcast, guys.
And over in my corner, we will be having Rocko once again, and we'll be talking about Love Spanked.
That's gonna be fun. I do want to make a bit of a disclaimer just to cover our heinies here. Both of our wives may be listening to this episode, and now that I found out that Carl is married, his too. Please recognize that any memories that we share about first crushes in the past, which we'll be talking about in a moment, are simply memories of the past and have nothing to do with our current affection for our significant others. Kid versions of Brett, Alex, and Carl are much different than who we are now, so please respect the distance and the division between the two.
Not sure if I'm so different anymore. I think my inner Alex is still there.
Yeah, I'm not secretly in love with my 6th grade crush. I promise. So just to break the ice here before we get into our categories, do you guys have any memories of like memorable crushes or like love-struck obsessions growing up?
Carl,
Thank you.
right on the spot.
I have a particularly traumatizing memory.
Really?
It was my first ever crush. I was in 3rd grade. It was Valentine's Day, and she didn't know I liked her. And I bought her a little teddy bear that was like in a little gift bag with chocolates in it. And I had it all planned out. We were going to go to recess, and I was going to sneak over to my bag after everybody left and take it out and put it on her desk. And things did not go as planned.
Oh no!
Came back from recess, and she came back to the classroom and was very embarrassed. And everybody started laughing. And suffice it to say, we did not fall in love that Valentine's Day in 1994 or whatever year that was.
I'm sorry to hear that, Carl. I didn't mean to open up a whole wound. I was hoping to be more positive.
Oh, that's part of it, you know. I mean, going out and doing these kinds of things. Love hurts, which we're going to find about in both of these episodes today.
Yes.
So sometimes it works great, which I believe all three of us have current examples of how great that works out. But there's times when it doesn't, and probably for the better. Yeah.
My first crush, well, one of my most memorable crushes from elementary school is a girl that was one of the new kids. She moved to town, and she was kind of athletic but also pretty. And for some reason, this is around the time Pokemon was really big. So I got the idea that I was really, well, still is, but this was when it first became a thing. Not, this is the Gen 1 era. And because I was a really shy, really nervous kid growing up, still kind of am, but to a lesser extent, I thought it would be a good way to break the ice with her by saying, hey, you want to trade Pokemon and, get to know each other better by battling each other and stuff like that. And I remember this was like at the end of a field trip to Sturbridge Village of all places, which I think is in Massachusetts because I was growing up in Connecticut. And at the end, we were just kind of sitting there waiting for our parents to pick us up after everyone else got off the bus and went home with their parents and drove out of the school parking lot. And I just very carefully pulled out my big fat gray Game Boy, my link cable, and I was like, hey, since we got nothing else better to do you want to play some Pokemon? And we battled a little bit, and she kicked my ass because she had a really strong Venusaur with a solar beam that obliterated my team. And I was like, wow, I never got beaten so hard by a girl before. And she said, first time for everything. And then I asked her, so do you still want to trade Pokemon? And just as I was about to trade with her, my mom pulls up and she's like, come on, Brett, let's go home. We got to go pick up your sister from school. And I'm like, what do I do? Suffice to say, I did not trade Pokemon with her that day, but I came really close. And, I was just kind of in and out of touch with her for middle school to high school. And then I remember in college, I reconnected with her briefly over Facebook, and I said hi. She's like, oh yeah, I remember that day where we played Pokemon together. Why'd you ask me to play Pokemon? And that was pretty much the end of our connection there. So another one that didn't end so well, and just because you think a girl's pretty doesn't mean she may necessarily like you back. So yeah.
Well, mine's a bit weird. But
weirder than that.
But in somewhat, well, it is somewhat sad and somewhat not. But for quite a bit of my childhood, I was bullied and picked on, and especially because of my looks. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I had a very difficult time really connecting to somebody just by the way they looked. I had to get to know the person. And I had such a terrible temper as a kid that I didn't really get connected with many people. So I never really had a crush on anyone in school for a very, very long time. I had a celebrity crush. Oh. Now, Sam, for the you Gagoids, I'm sure are well aware that I have a son who's turning 9 this month. And he, in our last Sam Reacts, was talking about Wednesday, the TV show, and how much he's taken quite an affinity for her and how pretty she is, and says that it's going to be his future wife one day. We'll see about that. But he's not far off from where his dad was, because as a kid, I wasn't Kimberly. I wasn't Team Topanga. I wasn't it Kelly from Saved by the Bell? I think that was her name. I never was big on any of the ones that most people. I was into Christina Ricci.
Oh, wow!
I thought she was really, really hot when I was a kid, and so, she's still beautiful. But Addams Family, watched it a couple of times, and I watched it several times. But it was Casper. Casper is what got me.
I was just going to suggest that.
So yeah, Sam, he's not far from his father. But my first real crush from school is actually sitting right over there.
Oh,
that's not an exaggeration, because she's in the room. No, I asked her out, and I'm not making this up either. She was really frustrated with me because I was really annoying, still am, but I remember at one point she had told me that she said, "I feel sorry for whoever marries you." And
she feels sorry for herself.
So there's my crush stories.
At least we got one happy ending out of that. well, technically out of those memories. I mean, we all have happy endings right now because we all are married to wonderful people, which we love dearly. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm glad to hear a little bit more about the romance in our 90s world growing up. So here's a quick rundown of the categories, and I'll let Carl take it away after I list them. So, well, actually, no. Carl's the judge. He should do the honors. I don't want it to be always the showrunner here. So, if you please.
I got my little grid all ready to go.
Sweet. Glad you're prepared. So, Carl, what are our categories for today's Love Fest?
Perfect. We have 5 categories. The first category is story. The second category is main character. The third category is object of affection. The fourth category is use of romance theme. This is going to be a tough one because both of these stories, both these shows do that very well. And last but not least, certainly not least, is lasting appeal.
Awesome. Take it away.
Who wants to go first?
Ooh, pick me.
Brett.
Don't mind if I do. No one else is going. So I'll just read a quick little synopsis for
Carl had something he was going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Before we get going, I know I have a Rocko's Modern Life background behind me. That's because Rocko's Modern Life was my favorite Nicktoon growing up by far. But I am a fair and impartial judge. You can trust that I'm going to give both of you guys a fair shot here. And I am definitely not coming into this with any preconceived notions of which cartoon is better and why it's Rocko. So take it away, Brett.
Much appreciated. Yeah, it's almost like Alex and Carl should be swapping their backgrounds right now. I think Alex has a very special love sickness and can't really spread the love over Zoom screens. So I'll just begin here with the I Love Chicken. Well, actually, let me start with some episode info before I dive into the story of I Love Chicken. So I Love Chicken's from Ren and Stimpy. It's from Season 4, Episode 6A, and the air date was November 19th, 1994. It was written by Bob Camp and directed by Ron Hughart, which, that's a great last name. And what happens in this episode is that Ren comes home from work and is, from grocery shopping. It's not really clear. As Stimpy pops out and hands him his favorite slippers and pipe. While the pipe is in Red's mouth, he asks Stimpy if he cleaned the apartment and other household chores. Stimpy says yes, so that he gives Ren the appropriate time to shove the groceries at him and tell him to make dinner. Stimpy, while putting away the groceries, notices the chicken. While looking through the cookbook and choosing a recipe, he starts prepping it. As he finishes basting the chicken, he notices that the wing of the chicken lifts up and touches him. So, getting kind of crazy here. Apparently, the chicken spontaneously falls in love with Stimpy, and Stimpy falls in love with chicken. It was love at first sight. And we get a nice, beautiful swooning montage of them just dancing around in the feelings of passion. And while he's doing that, Ren's wondering what's taking so long, and he opens the door to see Stimpy literally making out with the chicken, caught in the act with gravy all over his face. And Stimpy snaps at Ren, saying how he could be so insensitive, as Stimpy pronounces his love for the chicken, as they agree to get married. 2 weeks later, they are back from their honeymoon in Vegas, as it's been a long night. Stimpy is asleep and unfortunately wakes up to see Ren cooking chicken in the oven. Stimpy saves the chicken, but Ren is still determined to get that chicken. Ren then tricks Stimpy again and makes the chicken into sausages. Stimpy freaks out, slightly smacks Ren, and walks away with his now sausaged wife as he appreciates the new look. Looks a lot tighter, as he mentioned, I remember. Ren is just feeling alone as he reveals to Stimpy that they used to do everything together and he misses those days. Stimpy reassures him that he is and still is his best friend. Ren suggests a picnic for just the two of them as a result. The next day, Ren and Stimpy go on a picnic. However, Ren says he forgot the ketchup and heads back home, leaving Stimpy all by himself for a full day, just sitting there on the picnic basket without batting an eyelash. After 24 hours, Stimpy comes back to see Ren finishing eating Stimpy's wife. Stimpy, being depressed for 6 months, he's just totally in shock from the sight of his wife being devoured by Stimpy, and rightfully so. I feel the same way. Then we see a little title card that says 6 months later, Ren is still grieving in his bed. Stimpy is still grieving in his bed, just caught up in a funk of depression after witnessing the horrific act. And, Ren comes in to try and cheer him up, saying that, it wasn't that good. He even got bad gas, and then just kind of goes back to his old routine of, go make him dinner because he's the man of the household, apparently. So Stimpy, deflated, goes back to the kitchen, kind of just chucks and tosses all the different groceries behind him with a little bit of resentment. And then he happens upon a goat head of all things, vacuum packed in like one of those, grocery meat packages. And who'd have thought he fell in love once again. And while Ren is like imagining how tasty it's going to be to try that goat head stew, Stimpy shows up in a wedding dress and the goat head with like a little top hat, and he's like, "We're engaged." And so Ren pretty much pulls his hair out, his ears out, I think, too, and it just ends on him having a meltdown. So there you go. That's I Love Chicken in a nutshell.
Awesome. All right, Alex, let's hear about your Rocko episode.
Well, first of all, I've been told that love tastes like chicken.
Tasty.
Love Spanked, much like Brett, give a little bit of episode synopsis beforehand or episode details. Love Spanked is obviously from Rocko's Modern Life. It is from Season 1, Episode 12B. Came out on November 28th, 1993. Was written by Joe Murray and directed by Stephen Hillenburg. So for this episode, it opens up with Rocko having his eyes on the clock, waiting for the next door neighbor, Melba, to come get her newspaper. Rocko is so in love that he floats around the kitchen as Heifer asks if Rocko is still lusting after her. As Rocko is holding onto his heart that is pumping out of his chest, Heifer brings Rocko down by saying that she now has a boyfriend named Dave. As the window literally closes on him, Heifer pulls him out, and Heifer then tells Rocko to start dating by writing a personal ad so that the dates will start coming in. As soon as Heifer writes down Rocko's personal ad with a few inflated details, Rocko gets tons of responses. As he begins his first date, he meets the father, who threatens Rocko if he lays one paw on his daughter. that he will become his personal toothpick. The daughter, being a bit feisty, pulls Rocko close to her and suggests that they trade math equations. As Rocko freaks out, and as the father pops in and he just beats him up. He's completely flat when he gets out of the car. And the dates that take place after also don't seem to be working out until Heifer gets him on a dating game show. There are 3 dates for Rocko for the audience members to choose from, and they choose date number 3, which turns out to be Heifer, because he had a bikini photo shoot and they needed to stand in. Or the guest number 3 had a bikini shoot photo and Heifer had to stand in for her. So Heifer and Rocko have their date, and Heifer, in the next episode of the game show, pretty much says that he had a lousy time. Rocko is by himself, working up the courage to ask out Melba once again. However, before he does so, Heifer writes a love note in the paper exclusively for her, and Rocko is so mad and embarrassed that he wants him out of his life. Heifer starts cries and agrees, but Rocko, being who he is, takes it back and says it's okay. And what are the odds that she's even going to see the ad anyway? However, once outside, there are signs all around Rocko's house, giant billboard signs essentially going, "Love me!" As Heifer turns down Rocko's idea of going out to eat, he suggests, why don't we just stay inside and play checkers?
Don't forget the ending. Wink, wink. Do you remember when the little Cupid heifer tries to
that's
fly
right,
in?
that's right,
and
yeah.
Iris is out.
Little naked heifer butt going right through the little iris.
Fuzzy heifer naked butt.
Yeah,
he was a heifer.
Yeah. Just to add in real quick in favor of Alex's, I looked this up during the wiki fandom and I could not share it because it was too juicy. So if you have kids listening to this episode, turn away right now. Apparently, someone commented, user Marissa.new, said the pink rabbit want to quote unquote trade math equations. I know what that means. Add the bed, subtract the clothes, divide the legs, and multiply. Sorry, I had to do it. You all know I had to go there. And thank you for clarifying that, because I was wondering for the past 30 years what the heck that rabbit meant. Now I know.
I mean, it's a rabbit. They're all about multiplication.
Yeah.
How about we trade math equations, baby?
6 times 2, 2 plus 10, 3 times 4 and back again, and 39. 39. It's curvy yet so form-fitting, functional yet so alive, so full of grace, dignity. Oh, 39.
But now it just clicked for me. It was like getting a square peg into a round hole, and I finally just jammed it in with a sledgehammer. Which could also be a euphemism here.
Oh, man. Cool. Well, that was a story. You guys both did a great job recounting those epic tales. Let's move on to main character.
All right. So for I Love Chicken, we have essentially 3 main characters here, because there's no one else to really account for, except maybe the goat head, but it doesn't do anything. We have Ren, we have Stimpy, and we have the chicken, all behind me. And what can I say about them? I mean, Stimpy's his lovable, dopey self. Ren's his irritated, grumpy, extreme self that is like a projection of John Kay. And then we have Chicken, which is a delightful piece of poultry that you would love to have for dinner or have for dinner. And I find the dynamic in this love triangle very interesting, because it's not often that a character comes between Ren and Stimpy directly. Usually it's like a character that's opposing both of them, or one of them, and the other has to help out to, push them away. But in this case, the chicken came between the two because they each see the chicken differently. Stimpy sees the chicken as someone to love, someone to cherish, someone to spend the rest of his life with, apparently. And Ren just sees dinner. So because of that clash of perception, a lot of what happens in the story is resulted from the conflict that arises for who's right, who should get the prize of affection, so to speak. I'm not trying to like jump ahead here for category 3, but there's a love triangle going on here, and they have to decide how to handle it. And obviously, Ren is the more despicable, less honorable of the two. So obviously, he wants to do anything he can just to fill his tummy, even if it means murdering, Stimpy's wife, in quotes. And then, of course, we see a slew of emotions from Stimpy from the beginning, where he first falls in love with the chicken after he bastes it. And I say it only because I can't really tell the gender of the chicken. Maybe it's a girl, maybe it's a guy. I don't know. Leave it up to your imagination, Gackoids. But the point being is that, we go through all the different roller coasters of love and loss. And we get to see some depth of Stimpy we haven't really seen since like Son of Stimpy, which is one of the Christmas specials, where we just see him really down out and depressed over losing the chicken. And I'm glad it didn't last too long, but it's also important to note that these characters aren't just one-dimensional cartoons that are, bopping themselves on the heads with giant mallets to make us laugh at home. They have feelings, they have personality, they have life. And we get to see all the different stages of that, much like how we go through the different stages of love and life as well. As we mentioned before, with our memories, sometimes, passion turns to heartbreak, and we all have to learn how to process that and become stronger as a result. So I think in Stimpy's case, it really was a test of his character and how he can handle loss and also bounce back too, in terms of how to handle love more gracefully. And I guess, in his case, it worked out in the end because love is only a grocery bag away.
Awesome. Alex, you want to take it away?
For main characters for the Rocko episode, there's pretty much only 2. There is a lot of supporting characters, but it's mostly Rocko and Heifer. As stated earlier, Rocko has deep affections for his neighbor, but we've all been in a situation when we've had a crush on someone, whether they be somebody who is within our reality and within our world that we can obtain, and someone who's just never in a million years is this going to happen, no matter how much we want. And it's that second one where Rocko sits, and we never really see her, but we don't need to. What we need to see is his reaction. And this whole episode is him trying to let go of this unobtainable desire and move on with something else and try to establish that connection with someone else. But he's terrible with dating. He has said with Heifer, you know how bad I am at dating. And Heifer ranges from being a really good friend to being a really horrible friend, because at first he is trying to help motivate, and come on, you're a good guy. Girls like you. Come on, you get yourself out there, put out a personal ad. And then Heifer goes way too far by writing the personal ad and embellishes it, and even gets him on the game show, and then knowing that he's going to be on the game show still stands in for somebody, and then knowing that he's embarrassed by having to be on the game show, then goes even further by being brutally honest about how awful the date was. But Rocko, he's frustrated. This isn't at all what he wanted, and he was very excited about contestant number 1 and contestant number 2, so much so that he had a jackhammer in his mind. I wonder why that is.
There's date number 1, Diane, one of our nation's leading rocket scientists, who in her spare time enjoys bungee jumping into pits of hot whipped cream. Yvonne! Date number 2, a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet. Yvonne claims her only weakness is an unbearable fetish for short wallabies. That leaves us with your date, who not only loves building models of the Titanic and jackhammering, but is content just spending a lot of time on the couch. Your date, Heifer!
But Rocko he really runs the gamut of love, not necessarily to love and loss like Stimpy does, but he's never. It's that situation when you want to have that connection, you find somebody and you think you've got it, and then it just gets taken away from you, and you try again, and that gets taken away from you, and soon you become defeated. And then once Heifer has just done this one too many times, and he's finally getting the courage to finally go out, and I don't care if she's dating somebody or not, she's got to know how I feel about her. And then Heifer just puts the icing on the cake of how desperate he is. Now he's done, and I want you out of my life. You're making things awful. Rocko goes through a lot of emotions in this episode, and Heifer goes through 2. Happy, sad, happy again. But really, we see at the heart of it is just those two, and Rocko trying to establish that connection, and Heifer trying to help his friend, as ill-fated as it is.
Awesome. This is hard, guys. Well, let's move on to object of affection.
Sure. So for I Love Chicken, as the title implies, the object of affection is the uncooked chicken / friend's dinner. And I phrase it that way because it depends on how you look at it. If you're on Stimpy's side, it's, his future wife to be. If you're on Ren's side, it's like, roast. So now I'm getting hungry for chicken. Oh my gosh. What do I want to say about object of affection? Is it wrong to love chicken? I mean, chicken's one of the most beloved foods in American cuisine. So I can understand why Stimpy would have different feelings for her, but also Ren wanting to satisfy his inner cravings as well. Now this got complicated because now I'm wondering if I'm just gonna talk about from Stimpy's point of view or Ren's or both. Hold on. I think I'm going to stick with Stimpy for the sake of the argument because he is the star. Yeah, I'm not really sure why Stimpy fell in love with the chicken. It was just kind of a love at first sight thing, and Ren and Stimpy is just really random. I don't really recount any other instance where Stimpy fell in love with another character or even an object or what have you, but they clicked. I mean, if his fart son fell in love with a dead mackerel fishbone, then I guess there's some connection there.
I do want to say I love how because the punchline is fantastic for how they started, because when he's just after finished buttering it and putting down the baste and all that stuff, it plays out like a horror movie. The hand sits on top of him, and it's got that creepy, ominous sound, and then that turkey neck sits up, and I mean, there's no stare, but it's creepy and ugly.
It is,
and it's
Doesn't
that
it
gross
have,
out.
like, a mouth with teeth too.
Yeah.
But I mean, it starts off creepy, which is it's supposed to be, and Stimpy is taken aback by this, like, oh my gosh, and the expression on his face is horror.
Hold on a moment. I'm going to illustrate your point.
Yeah. Yes. And then right after, within seconds, then that love theme kicks in.
Yeah, that typical one that's in every 90s show.
I mean, it completely subverted expectations, because you're expecting this to be like a horror chicken coming to kill or attack Ren and Stimpy. Nope, he falls in love. And then that very next shot that you just showed, it shows the chicken is reciprocating. It's so ridiculous, but that's true Ren and Stimpy fashion.
I love chicken, and chicken loves me.
Yeah, total insanity and nonsense. It's like Rocko, but kicked up a notch or two.
Yes. That was my favorite gag in the whole episode. I mean, there were several in there, but that one made me laugh the hardest.
It was great. For me, I like how Stimpy put like Ren's fez and slippers and pipe on the chicken, and then when it became a sausage, he literally did the same thing again. And then Stimpy was like, I like your new look, so tight and neatly packed too. That's a different way. Chicken sausage, I mean, that's pretty tasty.
There were so many good quotes from that episode.
Yeah, I really wish I wish I had made that a category instead, because we could have gone all night with that, kind of like with Yellow Fever and Das Bus.
Yeah. Cool, man. That's that. You guys are laying out a convincing case. Both of you. Let's hear from you, Alex.
Well, the obvious thing for Rocko, or at least his object of desire, is Melba.
Melba.
We never see her. We just see her arm, and that's pretty much everything that we see. But we can see how much Rocko desires for that. But there's also a good argument to stand that it's not necessarily Melba, but it's having that special someone. Because he spends the whole episode trying to find that, whether it be with Melba or with all these other prospective love interests, and none of them take. But he's trying to really just make that connection and fails every step of the way. And not all of it's his fault. Sometimes it's situational, sometimes it's somebody else who intervenes, and sometimes it's him. But really, Melba is the big thing, is the big takeaway for this category, but you could also say that it's a connection, and that really that's what everybody wants.
Awesome. All right. 3 down, 2 to go.
Yeah, rolling right through them.
Our next category here, use of romance theme. Use of the romance theme. What do you got for me, Brett?
So for I Love Chicken, I mean, other than the obvious Stimpy and Chicken falling in love, you got the nice little parody with the title card of I Love Lucy, which is as romantic as it comes, because you know they were America's favorite couple in the 1950s and 60s, and I really love the homage of that. I wish they took it further and actually quoted or even quoted the show, or even like dressed up the chicken with like the typical Lucille Ball red hair and like the polka dotted housewife dress. That would have been like icing on the cake for me. It's okay if they didn't, but you know.
Lucy, you got some explaining to do.
The romance theme is like multi-tiered for me, because you also got the typical like type of music when they fall head over heels for each other. Shades of red and pink are everywhere. What else can I think about? Love theme, romance. It's like I'm blanking out now. I'm just so enamored by the episode.
You're love blind.
I am.
You're blinded by love, Brett.
Or are you still so blind that you can't see our relationship for what it is?
Now all I can think of is like the Love Fool song by the Cardigans running in my head. Oh, God. I mean, Stimpy will go to the ends of the earth for this chicken when, you know, it's a demonstration of his love for this character. Despite Ren's attempts to sabotage the relationship so that he can get Stimpy back as his, you know, main source of giving or getting attention, Stimpy is very persistent, even when chickens turn into a sausage, or even, well, you can't really save chicken after it's been eaten. I don't want to see Stimpy put a fez and slippers on what happens after Ren eats the sausage, but, you know. They love each other. There's music in the air. Stimpy shows his affection by caring for the chicken, by massaging it, basting it, making out with it, dressing it up, getting married. I guess they eloped because they went out of the kitchen with the little ladder, and like I think the chicken actually carried Stimpy out, which was a nice little cute nod to carrying the bride over the threshold type of thing. You know, Stimpy's willing to wait a whole day in the park for Ren to come back just so that he can be with Chicken again, even though he was easily duped. So you gotta give Stimpy points for loyalty and devotion here, even if it's totally ridiculous, cockamamie, doesn't pan out like you want it to.
I get tired of waiting. Don't worry about the ketchup.
Got the ketchup. Be right back. Okay. Goodbye. Thanks for the ride. Ren, I'm home. I got tired of waiting. Don't bother with the ketchup.
That's a great line. Maybe we should add a 6th category for quotes.
Oh man. Well, all good points, Brett. Let's hear from Alex.
So there's a lot of cliches that they use in this episode, like the hearts pumping out of Rocko's chest, and the hearts around him, and the hearts in his eyes, which is a common cartoon trope. You also have, like Brett had pointed out earlier, butt Cupid heifer, and
fuzzy butt heifer.
Fuzzy butt heifer, yes.
You also have, like they were just pointing out, a naked butt heifer Cupid. They had the Tunnel of Love at one point. You had the Love Connection TV show. Oh, it wasn't Love Connection, but it was Love Connection. You have a lot of the things that you see a lot in pop culture, cartoons, game shows, amusement park things, but also connecting with that object of affection. He's trying to find that connection with somebody. So you also have personal ads, you have that speed dating, and you have how it's not working with all these people. You have that going out on a date, and the overprotective father, and the loose daughter. You've got a lot of different aspects about dating life, whereas it's not the same thing that you would see for Rocko or Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy was just love triangle in an extreme ridiculous degree. This one is trying to be in the dating scene in an extreme degree.
Yeah, those are great points, Alex. That both episodes use, like, they approach romance from different angles. Like in the Ren and Stimpy episode, we're introduced to the other, love interest. In the Rocko episode, like, we never really even see Melba. It's the dynamic between the friendship that we. But I guess both sort of explore that dynamic too.
Yeah, I also find it interesting that it's like different stages of romance as well, because with Ren and Stimpy you have like the married home life where people are settling down and they're exploring their feelings more deeply, and values such as like devotion and loyalty, and Alex's episode is more on the earlier side of things where you're just kind of testing out the waters. You're like a 20-something bachelor, and you're just looking to find love in all the wrong places, as the song would say. And sometimes you find something, sometimes you don't. So I like seeing both contrasts together to kind of be all encompassing with how cartoons, particularly Nicktoons, treat romance.
Yeah, both together and both done so differently too. Mm-hmm. Which was the best thing about Nicktoons. Like, yeah, they're all cartoons, but I never, like, growing up, I never remember thinking of like Nicktoons as a brand that encases Rugrats and Rocko. I always saw them just as individual shows. So I guess that's, kudos to the creators for making something that's so, stands on its own.
Definitely.
All right. We have one last category here. Category is lasting appeal.
Ooh, the kicker.
So let's take it away, Brett.
What can I say? I feel like there's a quality of timelessness to it because it doesn't really latch on to any particular pop cultural references. You can watch it in the year 1994, you can watch it in the year 2024, and it would still feel like it's relevant to the period you're watching it, which I like. It has a very, very similar tone to I Love Lucy to a lesser extent, so it's not just the title card that references it, it's just more like husband-wife dynamic going on here with Stimpy and Chicken, or even Stimpy and Ren before Chicken came along and messed things up. So I appreciate how they deal with the romance here, and I still love watching this episode. It's still entertaining. It's got some of my favorite quotes of the series, especially like the quote, "Here come your slippers," do, 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 as he like puts, very gingerly places the slippers on Chicken's
oh boy
bony feet.
Here comes your slippers. Doot, 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 doot. Oh boy. I'm bringing your fez.
Yeah. It's fun, it's fresh, it's edgy. It's very similar to like Cartoon Network's Adult Swim in its earlier days. And plus, who doesn't love a homemade chicken dinner? No matter how you slice it, it's going to taste good and look good. So, chicken is like apple pie. It's just a staple of America that will never go away.
Shrimp? It's not what it looks like. We'll just tell your mother that we ate it all.
This episode, it has a side effect here in that it's making me really hungry.
Me too.
As soon as I'm like,
I'm hungry enough to go get a fried rotisserie chicken from the grocery store right now, but I'm not hungry enough to go get a goat head. I'm not touching that.
Just make sure, don't fall in love with the chicken.
Yeah. No, I'm married, so I can't.
Keep your feelings at bay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Alex. Last category.
I am gonna approach the elephant in the room because Ren and Stimpy, and Brett and I have talked about this a few times, and I know we've mentioned it in our Nicktoons episode. Ren and Stimpy has not aged as well as the other Nicktoons, and that's not because of the Nicktoon. It is because of the creator's history behind the scenes. And anytime you bring up Ren and Stimpy, there's always that ugh. And then also, Ren and Stimpy also had the adult party version that was on Spike TV, and every single time you talk about Ren and Stimpy on social media, you always get people who pull up that one. It's like, no, that's not the same thing. So a lot of people think that Ren and Stimpy has not aged well, and I highly disagree, because the Ren and Stimpy show itself, you take the creator out of it, it's still a fantastic show. And Rocko's Modern Life is still very much universally loved by Nicktoons fans, and it is just as bad as Ren and Stimpy. I'm sorry to tell you, but they both are, they're
irreverent.
They are both very, very irreverent. The only reason Rocko has aged better is because it has better history behind the scenes. So I'm putting that out there now. But there is still all those tropes still. I mean, even though, and we said this in a previous one for our Thanksgiving episode, even though this was modern life in the 90s, it's still happening now. You still have people who are having difficult time making those connections. You still have people who are falling in love with people who they can't obtain. You still have those friends who are trying way too hard. You have those good friends, and then you have those really awful friends who are under the guise of being helpful. You still have the tunnel of love. You still have the Love Connection TV shows. It's not Love Connection anymore, but you still have those type of The Bachelorette and The Bachelor, and who knows what all else.
Love is Blind on Netflix.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. People still are trying to make those go out on those dates and make those relationships with people. It's probably even more difficult now that social media has hit the scene, but it's still just as relatable in every single one of its facets of being in the dating scene and wanting to establish that connection but can't. The jokes are still funny. None of them have dated at all. The only thing that might have dated is the personal ads, but really you could substitute personal ads for social media and still hit all the same beats. So that's outside of just the newspaper thing, and you can still use that. It's still just as relevant today as it was in 93.
I would like to argue before you close things up, Carl, that in Ren and Stimpy's defense, My case is very much separate art from artist because the way he treated his staff was a little bit too nutso, overboard. But Bob Camp, who was his right-hand man, he essentially took over the show when Spumco became Games Animation for seasons 3 to 5 as Stimpy was rolling to a close. And I feel like he handled the stories gracefully because he still had some of that, edgy early 90s attitude to Ren and Stimpy, but he toned it down in a way where it was a lot more approachable and enjoyable. And even today, I would say that I prefer the Bob Camp seasons over the John K seasons, even though there's plenty of classics in the earlier ones like Fire Dog, Space Madness, Haunted House, etc. And
this episode was done by Bob Camp.
Yes, it is one of the later ones, and I think it still holds up well because it's just got a more approachable feeling to it, even if there are a few, like, I don't want to say terrifying, but it's definitely like off-putting scenes where Ren's just like, grindy, 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 I'm killing your wife.
Those are the parts that got me the most. I love those, all as horrible as you can make it.
And the close-up of eating the sausage, like, oh, it's just, ugh. They really love the visual gags and ramping it up to 11. So if you love that kind of like Rick and Morty stuff, Come to Ren and Stimpy Town.
Well, Stimpy, what's on TV tonight?
Oh, joy! Hey, Ren, it's Commander Hawk and Stimpy. Happy, happy, happy.
That's a real testament to the universe of Ren and Stimpy, is that you can watch seasons 1 and 2, and really, I mean, they're basically interchangeable. Like I never remember growing up thinking, oh, well, these episodes feel different than these other ones.
Right.
Because we all felt that with Rugrats.
Yeah.
Once the movie hit the scene, then it felt very different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I do want to mention something else that might blow your guys' mind. So Alex may not be aware, but I'm clearly aware because of my connection to this. But for this Love Spanked episode, you notice that it's directed by Steven Hillenburg. Do you know who Steven Hillenburg is?
I am well aware who Steven Hillenburg is.
Well, I'm going to remind you anyways. It's the creator of SpongeBob SquarePants, that 90s Nick behemoth that barely qualifies as a 90s Nicktoon and somehow destroyed the channel in the past 2 decades. But beyond that point, part of his success with SpongeBob was his use of like gross-ups and really exaggerated expressions. There are many instances where it's clear as day he lifted a lot of that stuff from Ren and Stimpy because they invented the gross-up and they perfected it, and they just kind of took the credit and ran with it to make it more popular amongst like millennials and Gen Zers. So, all 3 of these episodes are unexpectedly connected, although I didn't really mention a love-themed SpongeBob episode, which is Valentine's Day, but that's not for this episode. Get out.
Yeah, and the time jump stuff that they did all the time on SpongeBob.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was here. 6 months later. Yeah. I mean, that was here.
12 seconds later.
So for as popular as that show is, it owes a debt of gratitude to these 2 right here that we're talking about because they laid the groundwork.
Yeah.
They are the forefathers.
Yeah, for sure. I never thought of it that way before, but SpongeBob really is sort of a combination between those 2.
It really is.
Yeah. I have said, and I will continue to say, that SpongeBob is Ren and Stimpy's Rocko's Modern Life sloppy seconds and Ren and Stimpy's sloppy thirds.
Sure.
I vividly remember the summer that SpongeBob came out, and like it had been a couple years. Here's my Nickelodeon trajectory. Here's like 1990, my family gets cable.
Mm-hmm.
I love Nickelodeon. 1998, slowing down. 2000, But I remember thinking like, okay, yeah, I'm too old for Nickelodeon now.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess
this doesn't appeal to me anymore.
These are not the tunes you're looking for.
Nope.
But it was Tom Kenny did a lot of the voices in Rocko too, right?
Mm-hmm. He voiced Heifer, and he would later go on to voice SpongeBob, as we all know. So, its roots are in classic Nicktoons, and they deserve more credit.
Pretty wild. Cool. Well, anything anything you guys forgot to mention, or anything you want to stick out there before we bring this puppy home?
There's just so much that happens in my episode. It's like a blur. Even when I watched it earlier today in preparation for this episode, I don't even remember anything beyond the story beats. I admire Stimpy's courage that he's willing to risk his life to save the chicken as it's being roasted at 450 degrees Fahrenheit in a hot oven. He literally plunges in there, pulls it out, pats it dry as it's like roasting and still burning, and he's got flames and char on him as well. So kudos to you, man. You are quite the model of loyalty there.
Oh, my poor little baby.
Yeah,
I loved one.
Well, I had a horny rabbit.
How about we trade math equations, baby?
Yeah. Do you prefer horny rabbits or putting your life on the line to save your chicken wife burning in an oven?
Depends on the mood.
Which animal?
Well, let's start at the top here. We'll go category by category.
Alrighty.
Story, our first category. I went into this, and this is why these are so fun, because I went into this thinking, like, there's no way that Ren and Stimpy can beat Rocko in terms of story. But when you started recapping it, Brett, I'm like, this is so absurd. How could it not win the story? So I've got to give Ren and Stimpy the win on the story category.
Thank you very much.
Main characters, or main character, I should say. Though Ren and Stimpy is so absurd and the characters are so dynamic, I've got to give that win to Rocko. I think I just sympathized with Rocko more. He's such a nice guy, you can't help but feel bad for him. So he got the win on that one. Next category, object of affection. This was another one where I was like, I'm pretty sure I know who's going to win, but as you guys started duking it out, how do you not give the win to the chicken?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It wears a wedding dress.
If you didn't give it to the chicken, I was going to say what's wrong with you, because that was the best part of the episode.
And the way they draw it, it's so weird. Like,
yeah,
Ren and Stimpy does this so well, where you're like, I want to look away, but I can't.
It's very grotesque, yet because it's cartoony, it's very appealing. It really messes with your mind as a young viewer. Like, look at it behind me. It's just like a yellow oval with a fleshy stump for a neck. It's like a headless wife or something. And I just listened to the Green Ribbon horror story that was from childhood earlier today on another podcast, and it had to do with like a lady's head popping off after her ribbon was untied.
Oh, so
yeah. So I was like, wow, that's odd that I can make a connection to this, because Ren and Stimpy does do a lot of grotesque imagery to really appeal to a certain demographic who is into that.
Yeah.
Yet somehow, even though it's toned down here, it's like you get a little bit of both. Like, oh, that's so cute and fun. Ugh, what is that?
For a generation of children who had never touched or cooked a whole chicken before, this was their introduction to what a chicken is like.
Yeah.
I help but think how many kids were traumatized.
Wait, so I don't make out with the chicken after I baste it?
Oh man, my chicken's gonna have a mouth with teeth? So weird.
It's gonna caress me with its wing?
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this. In the Ren and Stimpy episode, who did you guys sympathize with character-wise? Was it Stimpy and like the feeling of being in love with something, or someone that your friends don't like, or was it Ren feeling that my best friend is in love with somebody and they're taking him away from me?
I can easily answer that. It depends on how hungry I am.
Yes.
Ren, what are you eating?
I was eating some delicious chicken sausages.
Hey!
I think that's what I wanted to say.
Because any other time, I would say absolutely Stimpy. But hanger is real with me. So if I get hangry and you play this, I'm going to be Ren all the way.
Yeah. My wife also likes to joke that my middle name is not Michael, but it's "You gonna finish that?" So I'm Brett. I'm Brett. You gonna finish that, Wilson? And if you see chicken that's uneaten in a kitchen, you bet I'm gonna steal a wing or a thigh and start going to town on it until there's nothing left but a dry carcass.
As long as it's cooked.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not going to eat raw chicken. Forget that.
I'm really glad both of you, neither of you said that you sympathize with the chicken, so we're good there. I'm probably getting way too deep into this, but I wonder if Stimpy just was, high with a case of salmonella, and that's why he.
That could have been the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is the only time he actually falls in love with a food item too.
Yeah, it is.
I can't think of anything else in another episode.
All right. Second to last category here. It's getting down to the wire. It's getting close. Use of romance theme. This one was another tough one. Both of them very specific romance dynamics. But I had to give this one to Alex with Rocko. I think it played through all of the tropes perfectly. I just think I think Rocko used it better.
That's fair. I mean, it's more relatable because it's like dating culture versus just home life, which not everyone gets married.
As opposed to dating, being married to a chicken.
What, you don't relate to that? I don't mean as an insult, just to clarify.
Next time I go to the grocery store and get one, I'm going to grab it and just start spinning around the kitchen with it.
Yeah, or like turkey sausages or a bucket of KFC.
No, Brett, you almost had the win here by mentioning that song that comes on every time somebody falls in love.
Yeah.
And
I love that song.
That had to have been in every Nickelodeon show.
It was definitely in Mona's mail carrier Mona episode Sleeve Shorts.
Yeah.
Now that's Amore.
Amore? That's a stupid name for a kid.
Yeah, and I think it was in it might have been an episode of Hey Dude even.
Probably.
But yeah,
he was in Looney Tunes all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So I almost gave you the win for that because it brought back those nostalgic memories for me, but ultimately had to give it to Rocko.
Dang, you're brutal this time, Carl. No ties.
We are down to the wire, and right now you guys are both tied.
Oh, okay.
But there's one category left. And that is lasting appeal. And I typically have one qualification for winner when it comes to this, and that's if I haven't seen the episode since childhood, which one do I remember more? And in this case, I watched both episodes. Both brought back memories of watching them as a child, but one was clearly the outlier, and it had to go to Rocko.
And the winner is Love Spank.
Well done.
So, and I'm sure I came in saying I'm going to be fair and unbalanced. And by the way, my favorite show growing up was Rocko, so I'm sure that played into it. The memories. But I think, if I don't have children yet, but once I do, which episode am I going to be comfortable showing them? And it's probably going to be the Rocko episode.
Oh no!
That was.
You don't want to teach him how to get married to poultry?
and I will second that, because of the two shows, Ren and Stimpy is my favorite. I love Rocko. Well, I've said before, I love Rocko now as an adult. I have very little memory of watching Rocko as a kid. I remember it being on in the background, but I remember a lot of Ren and Stimpy. But I did a huge binge in watching all the Ren and Stimpy episodes just a couple of years ago, and I had forgotten about this episode until it started. But going into this Rocko episode, even I hadn't seen this since I was a kid, and I still remembered a lot of the physical gags and a lot of the jokes and the naked butt Cupid. I don't know what it was about this one that just had that staying power, even though I didn't really watch it a lot. But it re-aired a lot, and it's the visuals and the jokes, the gags, they stuck with me more than a relationship with a chicken.
I will say that this Ren and Stimpy episode, and I wasn't a huge Ren and Stimpy fan growing up. I watched it if it was on.
Yeah.
But I will say that I laughed more as an adult watching this episode.
Yes. Yes.
It had so many good quotes. As I was watching, I was trying to type them down in my phone so that I could remember them later, and I couldn't type them fast enough. I had to pause and rewind.
Yeah.
Both great episodes. The Ren and Stimpy episode, definitely. You could tell Ren and Stimpy was made for adults. Like with Rocko, I'm sure they got way more studio notes.
Maybe for teenagers.
Yeah. Nickelodeon as a channel was more developed by the time Rocko came on. More to lose, more risk with your advertising dollars. So they played it cool. Still lots of innuendos.
Yeah.
But Ren and Stimpy really was, something special early on. It pushed all the boundaries.
It literally was lightning in a bottle. No one had ever seen anything like it before, and it was an explosive hit at the time because of its unique visuals and presentation that just couldn't be compared to anything that came before it. Not even some of its influences like Bob Clampett or Looney Tunes even.
Yeah.
I do want to add real quick, just to get my 2 cents in, is that you guys were talking about the nostalgia in terms of lasting appeal for the Rocko episode, and I actually remember that too. It's one of the few season 1 ones that still stick in my mind pretty vividly. But of all the Ren and Stimpy episodes I've seen, and I've seen the entire series multiple times over the course of my life, this one and Haunted House are the two that constantly reappear in my mind constantly. Out of all the ones that come to mind and I think of, it's those, To Salve and Salve Not, The House of Next Tuesday, ones that really make me laugh with the visual gags. And I think, even if it doesn't necessarily hold a candle to Rocko in terms of lasting appeal and relatability, I think it still stands on its own in terms of what it's trying to do with its style of comedy.
Agreed.
Cool.
Well done, Brett. Well done.
Thank you. I'm not even sad that I lost because they're both great episodes.
Yeah, they are good.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do a quick Patreon break. Don't worry, Geckoids, we're not going to smother you with ads like YouTube does. We're just going to, update you with a couple of things that are coming up on Patreon in the coming months. So stay tuned for that as we take a quick break and close up the Slime Vault. And you can just see what we got coming up for you, including our Geckoid's Choice.
Don't despair. Ren and Stimpy will be right back.
You know the feeling you get after you hear your favorite song for the first time? All you want to do is play it again and again, so it stays stuck in your head forever.
Thank you, Geckoids, for submitting your votes for the Geckoid's Choice that's happening on Patreon. We'll be doing these once a season, starting with Season 4, and according to the results, we will be reviewing our favorite Nicktoons for this coming episode. No, not Nicktoons as in cartoons, but Nicktoons as in music. So join us for episode B15 to get in all the musical action coming up next.
Now back to more of Rocko's Modern Life.
Okay, and we're back. Hope you enjoyed those messages and those updates that we got for you Gackoids. So we're going to move on to our Versus exclusive segment that we all love to play called Rename Game. So for Rename Game, I think you know how this goes by now because we've done a few verses since the beginning of this podcast. But basically what we're going to do is see if we can find a more fitting, more appropriate, or just more fun title that we can substitute for the current title of our episodes. Since Carl was judge, he has the honor and distinction of renaming both episodes, while Alex and I get to rename our own episode. Starting off, for I Love Chicken, I'm going to rename it with a better fitting title, Chicky, I'm home! For the I Love Lucy reference. I really want to tie that in somehow and make it clever because I love the title card. I used to watch I Love Lucy growing up, and I think it needs more Lucy references in this episode. And because I couldn't decide, I'm going to actually give you a second title for Rename Game, which is a Splat Attack first. So my other title is Winner Winner Ren's Chicken Dinner because he just wouldn't shut up about it. Awesome. And he got it in the end too. So Alex, what'd you rename Love Spanked?
Well, since the entire episode is about Heifer trying to help Rocko establish that connection, I have called it the Love Heifer.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, I have the distinction of naming both episodes. And so for the Ren and Stimpy episode, playing on the food theme, I think I'm going to call it Hot Love.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah.
For the Rocko's Modern Life episode, this was another hard one because they're always named so well. They're already named well. I think I'm going to go with, I had a few ideas, but I think I'm going to go with, see this would be perfect for...
Spank Me Tenderly.
This would be perfect for the Ren and Stimpy episode. I thought Wingman.
Because,
So
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
so,
let's go with
there
that
you
one.
go. Hot Love and Wingman.
Okay, so to recap our Rename Game titles, we have for I Love Chicken, Chicky, I'm home, and Winner Winner Ren's Chicken Dinner. And Carl's is Hot Love as well. And for Love Spanked, Alex has
the Love Heifer.
The Love Heifer. And Carl has Wingman. So, you know our titles now, so post wherever I put the poll of which title you prefer, and we'll read our results in a future Versus episode. And speaking of which, because I did not want to forget from last time, I have the results for the Are You Afraid of the Dark versus Goosebumps episode versus we did, which was Stay Out of the Basement and Dark Music. And I believe the turnout was I won the Dark Music title, but Alex won the Stay Out of the Basement one. Yeah. So I had the Cellar Door Dweller. Yes. Mm-hmm. I had the Tale of the Cellar Door Dweller, which, won on Instagram. And then Alex had the Root of All Evil, which was a very good play on words. And his one for Stay Out of the Basement. So congratulations to both of us. Woo!
And I had an idea for this episode. I'm putting you both on the spot. If you can't think of something, fine. I thought of something for both. If you had to pick a song, an actual song, to be for the theme song for these two episodes, what would you pick? I'll tell you what I had, so I'll give you some time to think on it. For Ren and Stimpy's, I thought Love Bites.
Yes, that is perfect by Def Leppard.
Yes, and for the Rocko episode, I thought of Theory of a Dead Man's Love is Hell.
Both good. Both painful, too.
Yeah. So if you think of something, throw it in there. But I just thought of them while we were going through the episodes. I thought it was fun.
Isn't Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places a song lyric?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's from, though.
I think that's the name of the song.
It is, yes, it is Looking for Love in All the Right Places by Johnny Lee.
I'm going with that one for Love
Rocko.
Spanked. Yeah, Rocko. And for Ren and Stimpy, are there any songs, like pop songs about chicken? Maybe Bad Romance by Lady Gaga.
Okay.
Let's go with that. That's just what popped in my mind because it's like forbidden.
I could see there was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with an artist called Rufus Thomas at all, but he had a string of hits. He was a Memphis guy, Brett. He had a string of hits, all like based around animals, and he had one called "Do the Funky Chicken."
Oh yeah! Wow, that took me back. I remember hearing about that before.
So
I remember someone doing a dance for it too.
Yeah, he wore like these outrageous outfits on stage, like bright pink suits, but like shorts instead of dress pants.
Oh, okay. Send me a link to that later.
Ooh, Brett, this could be a new segment.
What do you want to call it?
Name that tune.
Name that Nicktoon?
But we're naming it. We're naming the episode after a tune.
Yeah.
And they're Nicktoons.
So that could be fun. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of new segments, we're just cranking them out like Ren's cranking that sausage out of the meat grinder. We got a new segment called Collector's Corner that is premiering during season 4 because we don't want to be hogging all the splat light. Yeah, we don't want to be hogging all the splat light on Splat Attack. So we're gonna hand it over to Carl, who is also a fan of our show, and he's gonna share some of his rare 90s Nickelodeon items with all of you Gakoids to appreciate. And now it's time for Collector's Corner. So, Carl, what have you got for us today?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm honored to be the first guest for this new segment. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys know how much I love 90s Nick, and I love collecting 90s Nick. So I'm going to show you guys what my first, this is the first object I ever collected related to 90s Nick as an adult. Like, I have a few toys from Burger King and stuff like that I had growing up. But this is a cell from my favorite episode of Rocko's Modern Life.
Yes.
Can you hold it up so the glare isn't there?
Yeah, turn it just, there we go.
This way?
Very nice.
This way?
Oh. I saw Rocko peeking through the shower curtain there. Yeah, that's great. I love it.
Awesome.
Spunky's like jumping on Rocko and he's like wrestling with him.
Yep. And this is this episode. The reason I bought it and the reason it's my favorite episode is because Rocko says what I think is the best like line of lines in the series, because there's these recurring lines that happen.
Yep.
He says bath day is a very dangerous day.
Bath day is a very dangerous day.
Exactly, yeah. Get this, because I got a connection directly to that. So, quick little story time with my dog Nikau. He doesn't like taking baths, he doesn't like walking out in the rain, and he doesn't like it when I take him to get a bath. But once he's like being showered, he puts up with it. So bath day, my wife and I joke around that like bath day is a very dangerous day, so we say that quote all the time when we like take him to get a bath. And we took him to get a bath recently, and whenever we bring him home while he's still like sopping wet and needs to dry off either from the rain or we need to dry him off at the pet shop, we bring out like a very special blue towel that is like very plush and very luxurious feeling, and we call that towel Melba when we rub it all over him, because not only the Rocko reference, but also he gets so much pleasure out of being rubbed by that towel that he nearly falls over like this after being dried off. So I thought I had to share that too, so that you would appreciate it, because we love Spunky as much as we love our own dog.
That's good. Spunky had a lot of great moments in that episode too.
He did. He also has his own love-themed episode called Clean Levin that we briefly went over for our very first Patreon bonus episode last year. Favorite 90s romantic moments.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So my next item here, this is, I may have showed this on my Instagram page before, 90s Nicktoon. So this is a prop button from All That.
Okay.
You guys can see that or not.
It says P-Boy on it?
Boy Power.
Boy Power.
Boy Power.
Yeah, so the Spice Boys was a recurring skit in season 5 and 6.
Yep.
Okay.
And, they like wore these, and like if you ever saw like people in the crowd, you know, would have these on, and so yeah,
that's awesome.
I got this from a guy that worked at Nick Studios. He took it home with him. So
very cool.
And then one last thing here, I thought I'd show you. This is, I have a couple of these in different colors. But I grabbed the yellow one here. This is a contestant shirt from Wild and Crazy.
Nice. Looks pristine.
It's in really great shape, which is weird because normally when you see these, they're always they're like tattered.
Yeah.
They've been
they did get very wet and wild and dirty on that show.
Yeah, well, and if you think about it, the producers of that show, they went to like boys and girls clubs and just local youth groups and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so there's hundreds of these things out there. They just let the kid have it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But for them, this was, this is early 90s Nick, and most of those kids probably didn't even have cable to watch themselves on TV. Mm-hmm. And so they would wear the crap out of these. And so every one of these I found have been from thrift stores. People just give them away. They're just old clothes to them.
Man, I wish I was a super thrifter like you. I'd love to find treasures like this there.
Well, you gotta go to California thrift stores because that's where they all reside.
Right.
So
I should have done that when I was living there a few years back, but I didn't think of it at the time.
I was able to narrow this down to season 1 because the backside later on in the seasons, all the shirts have the
exclamation.
And season 1, they had just a repeat of the front.
Oh.
And this particular shirt was used in, I don't know what the episode was called, but they had grown-ups in a raft in a swimming pool, and kids would dive to try to splash the grown-ups.
Yeah, that was at the water park.
Yeah, that's right.
Very cool. I like that episode. Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are all great.
Yeah.
I love anytime you share stuff like this, Carl. This is so fun.
Yeah, and Gackoids at home, if you know anyone who would love to share some of their beloved 90s Nick memorabilia, let us know, and even record a video of yourself if you want us to share it for our future Collector's Corner segment. Thank you so much, Carl, for sharing your memorabilia with us today.
My pleasure. I love opportunities that I could share it with others.
Of course. Any final thoughts before we close up this episode, guys?
Thanks for having me on. It's always a blast. I always look forward to this so much.
Yeah. Happy to have you back again. It's always fun to see our guests after some time has passed, and I'm sure it won't be the last time, so as long as we can find an episode to pair you up with, we'll see you again.
Perfect.
Alrighty. Closing question for our Gackoids. Which romantic 90s Nicktoon episodes would you like to see go head-to-head? Write to us via email at splatattack2021@gmail.com. DM us on Instagram at Splat Attack Podcast, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Splat Attack Podcast, or just interact with us wherever you like on social media, whether it's here on Patreon in a comment, private message, or just a comment on YouTube or Instagram. We'll find you. Just interact with us. It'll be fun. Thank you, Carl, again for joining us. It was truly a pleasure to share our love of Nicktoons with you today for the Valentine's season. Is there anything you'd like to plug before we go?
You can follow me on Instagram, 90s Nicktoon. I'm still working on a way that I can interact with people through. You guys know I used to do the Snick strings, and my collection continues to grow of VHS tapes. So I'm still looking for ways to share that with others. That's coming soon. I've got my Iron in So Many Fires these days. So if you guys are into music, I just with my brother produced our first record on another artist, and that's coming out soon, so you can check that out on Instagram. Custom Recording Co. is our studio. So
awesome. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, check it out.
I just want to say before we go, thank you so much, Gackoids, for continuing to make this show possible. I know you're probably sick of hearing it by now, but we're just really thankful that you are willing to spend your hard-earned money on us and really help us get the show off the ground, especially with our recent Splatchins tier that got filled within an hour of me posting it. So that was a welcome surprise, and I'm looking forward to see how we can continue to put our heads together to make the show more engaging and evolve it and continue to reach more people through your love of what we do and our love of what we do for all of you.
Fully agreed. As always, thank you to Carl. Thank you to all of you Gackoids who are continuing to listen in and spreading the words to anyone else who may be interested. So you guys are awesome. You help keep us going. Thank you, guys.
Tune in next time, Gackoids, when we dig up our favorite cassette tapes and vinyl records from our old bedroom at our parents' place and listen to some magical music with our favorite Nicktoons episode chosen by you, the Gackoids. That's right. The polls are in, the polls are closed, and it turns out that our favorites for our very first Gackoids choice is favorite Nicktoons. So this is gonna be super fun, and it's also gonna be super difficult to write notes for this because you can categorize it 100 different ways. So Alex and I are gonna have to put our heads together on this one to keep the episode length down a little bit, or maybe just make a sequel down the road that's even more Nicktoons. So tune in for that. Pull out your record players and spin some CDs. It's gonna be one hell of a ride as we cherry pick some of our favorite tracks that are still spinning in our heads today. So until then, Alex, will you drain the slime tank for us, please? I have to cook this chicken dinner for Ren before he bites my head off.
Aye, Co-Captain. Just make sure that you do not fall in love with it before it's roasted.
Oh, don't worry about me. I'm already a married man. No paltry of passion can convince me to give them my heart. But I am a fruit man myself. Isn't that right, honey?
Alright, that's it. No more grocery shopping for you.
Splat you later, Gackoids. Isn't that right? Aren't you the cutest? I love you so much.
Reprise the theme song and roll the credits.
I reckon it's time for me to go. I'm glad that's over. Now for a peaceful night's sleep.
Well, that does it for now.
Yeah, we gotta catch a train.
Since I'm going home, you can have my arts and crafts project. It's a tweezer holder.
Alright, guys. Let's go fun.
How long have we been away?
See you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
I love chicken, and chicken loves me. And we do not abide coveters.
I think so.
Good. It's time now for the audience to decide your fate. I mean, date.
How about we trade math equations, baby?
And I want to spend the rest of my life with chicken. Huh? And I've consented to give my hand in marriage. Period!